Okay, all right. I think so. I'm going to start now. Thanks all for joining in. We are going to talk about the Scrum frameworks now, and it's about this implementation. And let's see how it goes. So let's move on to the agenda slide. Okay, so that's what we are going to talk about. We are going to talk about our Scrum background, what is Scrum, why this is implemented, how it is implemented. Then we are going to talk about the Scrum fundamentals, our basic definitions, basic roles played, basic ceremonies, events and everything, backlogs and everything. Then we are going to talk about how Scrum is implemented in day-to-day life at various organizations, whether it's limited to IT, it is not limited to IT. And finally, we are going to talk about Scrum in practicality, that on practical basis, what are a good point, what are the failure points, are, how things do not work as a Scrum, and why the hybrid model is adopted in various organizations. And finally, we are going to talk about everything, and we'll talk about some questions and answers from you, and we could also talk about some of the common interview questions that are asked in every organization when they hire Scrum Master, Agile coach, or maybe someone who's going to work in Agile or Scrum teams. Okay, so let's start with the first thing, Scrum basics. We'll talk about what is Scrum. Many people confuse about Scrum, whether it's a methodology or it is a framework or it is both or it is none of them. So I'll just clarify this myth. Many people consider it's a methodology. Many people consider it as a framework. However, there are three accreditation bodies for Scrum. One is PMI, one is Scrum Alliance, other one is Scrum.org. They have a little bit different definitions of the things, but as per my understanding and as per my knowledge and experience, Agile is a mindset. It's kind of approach of the delivery of a product. How we deliver a product, it's a mindset, it's an approach how we deliver a thing. Whereas Scrum is a framework within Agile. So that is Scrum. Scrum and Agile are not the same. It's just a part of an Agile. Maybe you call it as a framework. Again, I discussed about how Scrum is different from Agile. On what fundamental Scrum is based? So Scrum is based on adaptability, inspection, transparency, self-organizing teams, and learning from their own experiences. So these are the few fundamentals in which Scrum is based. If we talk about the benefits of Scrum, there are few benefits. First, great customer experience, business advantage, a kind of a good philosophy within the self-organizing teams, and most important, it's return of investments. So why most of the organizations are trying to adopt Scrum and Agile? They are trying to adopt Scrum and Agile because they want to make a better return of investments. They want to make a better customer satisfaction. They want to build more relationships with the customer so that they could generate more business from the same customer. So these are some of the values that Scrum creates. If we talk about what is Scrum objective, when we adopt Scrum, what are the objectives that we are trying to pursue here? So one of the objective for Scrum is that when we adopt Scrum, everybody knows what the team is doing. Unlike the other methodologies like waterfall or other things where the team members work in silos, in Scrum everybody knows what they are building, who is building what, and most importantly, what is definition of done, what are the things, who are the roles and responsibilities involved with each person. So everybody knows everything about this, and this is called as a clear communication within the team. So this is one of the Scrum objective. Next Scrum objective is about creating a cross functional teams. When we say creating a cross functional team, what does it mean? It means let's divide a particular piece of work in three things. Let's see three things. You get some work from the customer in the form of requirements. When you get the requirements, you analyze those requirements and see whether these requirements are valid or these requirements are not valid. Many times the requirement that we get from the customers are not valid because we can't create them. Either it's a problem with the overall technology, or it is a problem from the business side, or the requirement that has been asked to deliver, it's functionally not possible. So first is a analysis, then we design, then we create, then we test, and then we deliver. So these are the five basic facts that we do while before delivering the things. And when we get the requirements, we create a cross-functional team based of all five things. We have some person who do the analysis, some person for doing the design, some person dev, some person tests that, and someone is who delivers the project, delivers a particular iteration finally. So different people have different roles, but all the roles make a cross-functional team. Every function is different from the other, and when we group all these people together, it becomes a cross-functional team, and this is called as a Scrum team. Next objective is about frequent inspection and information sharing. What we mean by frequent inspection? The frequent inspection means that whatever we are doing, we are checking it on regular basis. We are seeing that what are we delivering and what are the progress we are making. As we know that in Scrum, we deliver a particular iteration in a time box manner. So it's the timing is most important part in Scrum. So when we do a frequent inspection, we do a frequent inspection in terms of what we are building, what quality of things that we are building, and how much time we are building. And finally, because we have a self-organizing team, one of the major Scrum objective is to improve the efficiency. Efficiency can't be improved if someone dictates you what to do. Efficiency could be improved when people understand their responsibility and deliver accordingly. When they have the motivation to deliver the things rather than someone being on their back and kicking on their back to deliver things on frequent basis. So that's how the Scrum objective is. Its objective is to have a clear communication, improve efficiency, build customer collaboration, make a cross-functional team. So these are all the Scrum objectives. Well, moving to the next slide now. The three Scrum pillars. So as I said about the basics definition of Scrum and about their objective, it's important to talk about three Scrum pillars. Scrum is fundamentally based on three pillars, which is transparency, inspection, and adaptation. And as I said, that transparency means that everyone, that is visibility to everyone that who's doing what. The team does not have titles. The team describe the roles. They assign their roles by themselves. Nobody assigns them. They take up their roles, complete their job in the time boxed manner. This is called sprint. I'm going to talk about this in the next slide. And everybody knows that what part of the product they are building up in this particular iteration. And in order to complete that iteration, what is the definition of done? How do we consider that this piece is completely done? This is maintained by having a quick transparency. Next pillar is about inspection. As I said before, that inspection means timely check on the progress. It means timely check on the quality. It means to check that if we are deviating from a plan, either in terms of quality, in terms of requirements, or in terms of progress, we see that what is the progress we have made, what are the problems we could see, and what are the hindrances that could slow us down. So we do a frequent inspection, and as a result of frequent inspection, we do adaptation. So adaptation is the third pillar. We see that if there is a change in directions, many times we get a change in directions. Either it's due to deviation that we got from the plan. We could not build the things as per the requirements. So we just move the requirements according to the way, or we move our approach and deliver the things. Sometimes requirements are good, our approach is good, but the problem is customer changes the mind. He wants to get another feature done. He wants to cancel one thing and get another thing into the project. This could be due to business advantage or business competition or anything. So if there is a change in business requirement, we do adaptation, we change our course of action. That is adaptation. Okay, and next we are going to talk about Scrum at glance. What is Scrum? So Scrum could be defined as in the four parts. One is basic definitions. Then there is something that is called a Scrum Events, Scrum Artifacts, and Scrum Team Members. So I think so it's good to start with the Scrum Team Members first. Let me tell you what are the Scrum Team Members, what are their roles. Then we are going to talk about what are the events and artifacts. So let me move on to that first. Let's talk about Scrum Team first. So Scrum Team mainly consists of three kind of people, three kind of stakeholders. One is the product owner, the most important person. Second is the Scrum Master, and third is the dev team. Apart from these three roles, there is also called as stakeholders. Other stakeholders mean senior management. Other stakeholders means those people who can be affected by the team. Even the users are the stakeholders. But in this slide, we are going to talk about the major element of the Scrum team, that is the product owner, Scrum master, and dev team. So the product owner. So let's define the role of product owner. A product owner is someone who creates the value of the product, who is the owner of the product. He knows that when he's going to deliver a product, I mean, when the team is going to deliver the product, what kind of value it's going to generate for the customer, what kind of value it's going to generate for the users, and how the customer reaction and user reaction would be, whether it would be fruitful product for changing the lives of people or not. He defines that what work needs to be done to complete the project. So he creates a backlog. A backlog is a list of work that is needed to complete in order to build up a product. And he not only defines that what would be the work done in order to create the product, he also defines that what will be the priority of that backlog, which piece of work should be taken first and which piece of work should be taken later. He also defines and measures the accuracy, value, visibility of the product. So in other words, he is the owner of the product. He takes all the responsibility along with the dev team for creating value to the customer, users, and everyone's life in relation to the product. Next, I would say Scrum Master. Scrum Master is a very important person of the team. He is not a manager. He's not, I would say, a master or someone who assigns the work. He's just a servant leader. By servant leader means a leader who is bound to serve you. He's not going to dictate you. He's not going to tell you what to do, but he's going to serve you. That's what we define as a servant leader. His job is to remove all kind of problems, bottleneck, hindrances from the team so that team could focus directly on delivering the product and building the product. If the team is low in motivations due to conflicts, due to problems, due to divided attention, due to any kind of extra work given by the team, different teams, stakeholders, different managers, then he's the one who resolves all this conflict. He motivates the team and he makes sure that the team progress on the task, and the team does not have a divided attention due to any external interference. He also encouraged team to get the best practices involved into the delivery of the product. And finally, his job is to handle the meetings, the daily meetings, daily and weekly meetings. And he also helped the product owner in creating the backlog. This backlog could be anything, maybe product backlog, sprint backlog. We are going to talk more about this in next slide. We also have dev team, and it consists between 4 to 10 people mostly. It doesn't go beyond that, because if it goes beyond that, then we create another Scrum team, and then we do something which is called a Scrum of Scrums. But that is very high concept, and we'll take it for some other session. But this team will talk about Scrum only. So dev team is a cross-functional team. As I said before, cross-functional team means that a person, different team members doing design, analysis, requirements, building the product, testing the product, and finally delivering the product. So all different functions are done by the same team. That's why it is called a cross-functional team. It is self-organizing team because nobody assigns the work in this team. These team is highly motivated. They discuss in a democratic way and discuss and takes the work and owns that work and delivers that work. So they have the responsibility and accountability of everything to deliver into the project. They work with the Scrum Master to prioritize the backlog and sprint planning. They take part in all the Scrum meetings, and finally discuss that how they are moving, what kind of work they are supposed to take, what kind of work that has been pushed to them but they are unable to take, and that should be taken off from the sprint backlog. So all these things are discussed by the dev team. So we come over here, and next we are going to talk about our Agile Scrum framework at glance. That what is the Agile framework and how the framework for Scrum is start from the end it goes. A lot of things we have already discussed, and I'm going to talk about, but just before that, I just missed one of the Scrum definitions. I'm going to talk about a little more about it. One thing that is called as Scrum events. When we talk about Scrum events, it's very important to define few events. First is sprint. Sprint is nothing but a time box iteration in which a particular piece of product is needed to be delivered. For example, you are making a product like WhatsApp. So if you are making a product like WhatsApp, you're going to define first features, and then you're going to take up one feature. For example, WhatsApp now have calling. It has video, it has got document sharing, it has got only chats, and it has got some WhatsApp for business and other features too. It has got features of making groups. So it has got a lot number of features. So let's take a product team is about a dev team is about to build a feature like a kind of a full product like WhatsApp. So they are going to break down into pieces, and they take one particular piece like group chatting. So they take it as in one particular sprint, although group chatting feature can't be delivered in one sprint, but let's take it's a smaller product. So in one particular sprint, you are delivered to do X amount of work in a time boxed manner. This time box could be 2 weeks, could be 4 weeks, and this time box iteration is called as sprint. Next we call as Scrum event, that is daily Scrum meeting. A daily Scrum meeting is nothing. It is a meeting of the dev teams, product owner, and Scrum master. Sometimes product owner do not attend these team meetings, but it just means that whatever you are doing, how you are doing. For example, it talks about what you have done in past, what are you going to do today, and is there any blocker that is not helping you in moving forward. So these three questions are answered in daily Scrum meeting. This meeting is also time boxed. It is 15-minute meeting, and it is a very quick meeting to share and see the how much progress you are making and what progress you could make in the particular day. Then we talk about the sprint planning meeting, the time when a sprint is defined, when we decide that what are the work that we are going to do in sprint. We decide and we get the backlog, a sprint backlog from the product owner. We decide that this backlog, what are the things, what are the work elements that we are going to do into this, what are the elements that we could not deliver, and on the basis of that we plan the whole sprint, and the final outcome of the sprint is a final sprint backlog that is supposed to be delivered. Once we define, deliver all the sprint backlog, we do a review meeting. In the review meeting, we discuss that what we have delivered, how we have delivered, and this is actually called as a delivery or not. And this is decided by a product owner who asks questions about the delivery from the dev team and Scrum Master, and finally decide that it meets the definition of done or not. If it meets the definition of done, we move to the next sprint. If it doesn't meet a definition of done, even then we move to the next sprint. However, the part of the backlog is carried forward to the next sprint. And finally, when everything is done, we get a sign off from the customer. We do a sprint retro meeting. The difference between a review meeting and a retro meeting is that in a review meeting, we talk about the backlog, the work, and everything. Whereas in a retro meeting, we talk about strategies and approach. We see about what is working with the team, what is not working with the team. Is there anything they could change? So it works on three parameters: go, stop, continue. By go means what are the things that they should start doing. By stop means what are things they should stop doing and that are not working well. And continue with means that what are the things that they continue doing that are bringing good results. So these are the 5 Scrum events. We are now going to talk about Scrum artifacts. Scrum artifacts, that means what are the things, what are the part of the Scrum that are documented, what are the part of the Scrum that are the integral part of Scrums. So this is first is product backlog. Product backlog is a list of all the work that needs to be done to deliver a product. All the list of work, that is product backlog. Sprint backlog is slightly different. Out of sprint backlog is a part of a product backlog. We determine all the product backlog and we put them into various brackets. We put them into various sprints, and any work from the product backlog, if it is delivered on a particular sprint, then it is called as sprint backlog. And now the third artifact is the definition of done. It's not just important to deliver the product or to build it. It's also important that it is acknowledged by everyone that this piece of work is completed. And how this would be defined. For example, take an example. We are delivering a particular piece of product like WhatsApp, and we are doing the testing for that. You delivered a product, you build it already, you tested it and delivered to the customer. The customer says that, okay, fine, you have built and delivered and tested, but we want to do the penetration testing in 5 ways. but you have not defined that what are those 5 ways, and you have not even decided whether you are going to do the penetration testing or not. You might have expecting that you will do all these XYZ kind of things, but not the penetration testing, because this is supposed to be done by someone else. Out this, you might consider this would be out of the requirements. It was never been discussed. So in this particular case, definition of done is most important. We define that what would be the definition of done in the beginning itself. And if in case you find that the new requirements have come in, and without these requirements we won't be able to complete the project, then we are going to adapt. We are going to adapt, and what we do, we move to a change requirements, and we deliver the product according to the change requirements. This is called as adaptability, as I discussed in a few slides before. The other definitions are the team members. We have already discussed what the Scrum team members. And if we talk about few of the basic definitions, we have talked about backlog, we have talked about product owner, we have talked about self-organizing teams, sprints, artifacts, Scrum Master, sprint meetings. One last thing that we haven't discussed about is the burn up and burn down charts. So burn up and burn down charts are the measurement of velocity. Velocity is something which is called as how far and how progressive we are in terms of moving. This is done by Scrum Master and shown in the various daily or Scrum review meetings. So this is Scrum at glance. Now we are going to talk about the final thing, that is Scrum Agile framework at glance. So as I discussed about the role of product owner is very important. He prioritizes that what work needs to be done. He makes that what would the product backlog, and he also proposed that what could be the sprint backlog. And at the sprint planning meeting, all the team members, including Scrum Master, product owner, sit together and see that what could be the sprint backlog, what work they can take up, from the product backlog. And finally, the end result of the sprint planning meeting is a final sprint backlog, that what are you going to deliver in the sprint on that particular sprint. That is sprint backlog. And when the sprint backlog is defined, we do a 1 to 4 week sprint, depending upon the organization, how it goes. So we do a sprint. It's a time boxed iteration in which we deliver a particular piece of the product. And during this iteration, we meet up in every 24 hours, every next day, to see how far we have produced. The velocity. Scrum Master comes with a burn up, burn down charts during the daily Scrum meetings. And once the whole sprint is completed, we do a finished product. And when we do a finished product, we do a sprint review meeting to see that what we have delivered, how we have delivered, is it complete or not. And once the review is completed, we finally do a retrospective meeting. In this retrospective meeting, we see that what should we start doing to pick up the things well, what should we stop doing, and what are the things that we should continue doing it. So these are the Scrum framework, and this is how we do in Scrum. And that is of most of the Scrum is all about. And there are other things. There are many times there's a hybrid Scrum. At times, organization adapt the Scrum according to the way that suits them the best. But overall, this is the master Scrum framework on which the adaptations are made. Okay, so more or less, I have completed my presentation on Scrum, and I would ask everyone to, if you have questions, then I have all my ears. I'll be helping you with all the questions and answers. And if we have time, then we are going to talk about some interview questions too. Okay, so guys, you can mute yourself, and we can talk about the questions if you have.
Hey Raghav, it's Raj here.
Okay, hi Raj.
So I just want to thanks for the informative presentation, and I just want to ask, like, in what position you will place the business analyst role in the Scrum Master framework? So is there someone who will be business analyst, or like, so because you are saying Scrum Master is a kind of a technical lead, so does the Scrum doesn't have business analyst role?
So the Scrum Master can't be a business analyst. So if many times you go into, I know that it happens that you go for an interview, people wants to hire a business analyst, and the work is related to either Scrum Master or a product owner. And that's what I'm saying. There are many times adaptations happens. So a business analyst is quite different from product owner and Scrum Master. Business analyst who takes the requirement, breaks the requirement into pieces, and makes them into a technical language, and non-technical
Yes.
knowledge, depending upon whether is discussing with the customer or with the teams. So this is more about a role about a business analyst, whereas for product owner, he decides that what should be the priority. He decides that what is the work that the team is going to do. He decides what is the definition of done. He decides whether the product has a value or not. If it doesn't have a value, he asks the team to do a rework. These kind of authority is not in business analyst.
Right.
Business analyst is mostly on waterfall projects where they have another person. That another person is called as a project manager. So that project manager is a kind of a governing body for a business analyst, and he guides the business analyst for doing the things, and he's authority over there. Whereas in Agile and Scrum teams, this authority is not there. However, there is a roles defined, and the product owner defines and takes the control of the things whenever it's needed. Scrum Master is just to help the team.
Okay. Okay. Just one final question. So, if I'm going for an interview for a business analyst position,
Okay.
and the interviewer asks you like we are having a Scrum model, so in again what question you will be, I will be into a development team kind of the role, or a Scrum master. So I'm just confused in that aspect.
Okay, so business analyst role is more relatable to product owner rather than a
Product owner.
scrum
Okay.
master. It is more relatable
Right.
to a product owner. The only problem is business analyst does not have authority, whereas product owner has authority to make decisions.
Right.
All
Thanks,
right.
by the way.
Scrum
Yeah.
master is Scrum master is definitely not relatable to business analyst. He is not
Right.
that the servant leader. Okay.
Right. Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Do we have next questions?
Hi, Raghav. I have a question. So, does the Scrum Master need in any way any kind of technical knowledge?
Okay. Specifically, a scrum master does not need any technical knowledge. That is in theory, and that is true. However, in organizations, people sometimes do not hire a full-time scrum master. Usually they make the scrum master who from the team itself. Sometimes it's not a full-time position, sometimes it's a part-time position. Sometimes the dev team, one of the part member of the dev team takes a role of a scrum master. In other organizations, when they hire a full-time scrum master, they do not require a technical person. However, they would prefer that someone with a who has a background of technology is always preferred, because in that cases they understand the problems within the team and guides them accordingly. But a scrum master does not do a technical work. It's not meant for doing a technical work. He needs to understand the technology, however, to guide the scrum team members. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Raghav Abhilash here. So
Abla.
for the Scrum Master, this any certifications are mandatory? This CSM, PSM one,
Certifications
and
are
PSM two.
mandatory. Yes, certifications are mandatory. There are 4 certifications, and I encourage everyone, those people, even though those people who have 5 to 10 years of work experience in a Scrum Master or Agile coach, if they're not certified, especially in the Irish market, the Scrum certifications are very important. Without Scrum certifications, I believe your CV will not only be shortlisted, unless you are a super person in terms of networking. So there are 4 certifications that you could do. First is CSM, a certified scrum master. Then is PSM 1 and PSM 2, and the fourth one is ACP Agile. ACP, that is Agile certified practitioner. This is done by PMI. So the PMI certification is for the entire Agile, not only just for Scrum. Whereas CSM, PSM 1 and PSM 2, these are the certifications only for Scrum, only for the Scrum Master roles. Whereas for Agile certification can be used for Scrum Master as well as for product owner. Product owner, we have another certification as CSPO, but Agile certification somewhere revolves around all the 3 roles: Scrum Master, Dev Team, and Product Owner. So it is like a master certification for all. And I would strongly encourage you do a certification if you are looking for an Agile or Scrum Master role. Okay. Any other questions, guys? No? Okay. So if you don't have any other questions, I'll just come up with few of my questions that is most frequently asked in the interviews. One of the key things, nobody's going to ask about define what is Scrum, define what is retrospective meeting, define what are roles. These are the questions that nobody's going to ask. People will ask you questions about your philosophy and your thoughts about Scrum and Agile process. You may ask that what are the areas in which you don't find Scrum as suitable? What are the ways in you think that Scrum Master fails as a servant leader? People would ask about what do you do when the team is not able to adapt according to the changing requirements. People may ask about what is your preferred model, agile or waterfall, or you want to come up with a hybrid model. People would ask you about questions related to that agile ceremonies. What are the stakeholders you want to include in various Scrum ceremonies? Whether product owner should come in the whether product owner should come in the daily Scrum meetings, or you want to call customer in Scrum meetings. And do you see a value in different iterations? What do you see? What kind of iteration should be 2 weeks, 4 weeks, or you think that iteration model should be changed? So they are going to ask you about the questions on the basis of your knowledge, understanding, and concepts. They would like to know more about your views on Scrum and about coaching the team. Rather than asking the questions about basics, they are going to ask about your views about Scrum, and they would like to see whether your views about Scrum and Agile fits that organization or not. So if you are going into any interviews for Agile coach, Scrum Master, or any of the roles that require Scrum or Agile, the first thing is you need to check about how that particular organization maintain the agile model or Scrum model. It may not be available on their website. Best is to check with one of the employees or team members over the LinkedIn that what kind of delivery they prefer. And if not, you can check the recruiter about if they have any knowledge about it, or if in case if you have done with one interview and you are moving to the next interview, then at the end of the first interview you can check about the methodology of delivery in Agile and Scrum, so that you could do better in the next round of interviews. So there may not be some right and wrong questions. It may be just best fit and less than best fit answers for the Agile interview questions. So I'm going to wind up here. And if you have any more questions, I would upload this video on YouTube. You can ask me on more questions over there, and I would be very happy to answer that. If you need any kind of consultations regarding your career guidance or CV, anything, I've given you my LinkedIn page and my email address. You can shoot me your CV or your email, and I would be very happy to guide you. Thank you guys for joining in, and hopefully we'll meet next time again on a different course of training. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Raghav. Bye.
Thank you, Raghav.
Thank you. Bye bye.